Hey, it's Stacey from Proven Winners Color Choice Shrubs, and in this video I'm going to show you 5 different shrubs that are perfect for planting in fall. They're perfect for planting in fall because they're hardy, they're not going to get damaged by winter, they're also heat tolerant, so if you live in a warm climate they're going to work well, and because these are plants that are going to start looking good and performing for you as soon as next spring. This is actually part 2 of a 2-part video where in part 1 we talk about all the reasons why you should plant in fall and give a couple of things that you should avoid planting in fall. So if you haven't already seen that, this video works just fine on its own, but you might want to visit part 1 as well. We'll link it in the description. So in no particular order, I'm starting with this plant right here. This is Kintzley's Ghost Honeysuckle. And if you subscribe to our channel, and if you don't, please do hit the subscribe button right now. You've heard us talking about this plant. It is such an incredible, beautiful native honeysuckle. So it's not invasive. I know a lot of people hear honeysuckle and think like, whoa, not going to do that. This is actually a North American native honeysuckle. Very, very hardy, very, very heat tolerant. The cool thing about this is that when it flowers, these really cool flying saucer-like bracts form around the blooms. The reason this is such a good plant to plant in fall for spring is because it's a vine. And a lot of vines, if they're planted too late in spring, they won't start climbing. And then you're kind of left with this messy plant that you have to train and work at. Whereas if you plant this in fall near a structure, as soon as this thing starts to emerge next spring, it's going to start climbing up whatever trellis or pergola or obelisk that you have and give you this amazing look a lot sooner. So our second suggestion for this video is Father Gilla. And the plant that I'm with right now is Legend of the Small Father Gilla. We also have Legend of the Fall Father Gilla. This is a native shrub, also known as bottlebrush or fetterbush. I typically call it, sometimes people call it witch elder. I typically call it a Father Gilla. But the reason that this is a good plant to plant in fall is because it's a twofer. So these get great fall color. It's still a little early for them to have developed it just yet. But if you plant them in fall, you're going to be able to enjoy that amazing fall color in your garden. And because these were already at the garden center, they have most likely, not always 100%, already set their flower buds for next spring. So that means you aren't going to have to wait for it to get established in your garden to see the flowers. And these bloom in early spring with fragrant white flowers that do indeed look like bottle brushes. So the nice thing about this, going to be able to withstand winter, give you some fall color when you plant now, and give you some nice flowers in spring to look forward to, and it'll get that head start on growth. It is a slow growing plant by and large, so it can really benefit from getting a few extra months before summer comes. So the third plant is Ninebark. Now this is a very hardy plant, so if you live in a cold climate, absolutely no problem planting this in fall. It's not the most heat tolerant, so if you are in a warm climate, you can just ignore this part. But Ninebark is great because it's primarily a foliage plant. They do get really nice flowers, and you probably will see those in spring. But you know, I love a good foliage plant that's going to immediately give you some color as soon as the growth starts out when the growing season returns. This particular one is summer wine, but we have a number of other winebarks in the Proven Winners Color Choice line that you might want to take a look at, from very small sizes to larger ones like this, and some different colors too. So the fourth plant is this one. This is Spirea. Now, any Spirea would be a good candidate for fall planting, but I'm specifically speaking about the double play series of Spirea that we offer for 2 reasons, as you might guess by the name double play. So when this plant comes out in spring, the foliage, all of these were selected to have really amazing foliage color. So just as it starts to emerge, it can be anything from bright orange to bright red to bright yellow. So it just brings this vivid color in spring, and that will happen as soon as next spring if you plant it now. And then these will go on to flower usually in June. Spirea are very durable plants. They're very hardy. They are very heat tolerant. They're just a great problem solver. So, you know, if you have an area that you're finding difficulty having something growing in, or you just want some easy care color, double play Spirea are a great choice, and you can easily plant them now. There are lots of shrubs that I could have shown you in this video. I tried to just limit it to 5, but honestly, the majority of the shrubs in the Proven Winners Color Choice line would work, with the exceptions that we heard about in part 1 of the video. So go to provenwinnerscolorchoice.com, use our plant finder to narrow down by your zone, and take a look at all of your options. But I did want to end this video on a 5th plant that is great for fall planting, and it is panicle hydrangea. And of course, everybody loves panicle hydrangeas. And you know, these really suffer kind of from a disadvantage in spring Because they do bloom so late in the season, they don't really look like much when people are in the garden center in spring. In fall, on the other hand, they should look pretty good. Sometimes they might look a little bit tired, as you would too if you had spent your whole entire summer in a container trying to grow with uneven watering in a garden center. But they are, even if your plant does look kind of tired, it's still a great choice for fall planting. Panicle hydrangeas like this are hardy down to USDA Zone 3. That is really, really cold. So even in USDA Zone 3, you can easily plant these in fall and enjoy them as soon as next summer. Even in USDA Zone 8, which is the typical heat zone tolerance of most of them, you can plant them in fall. So they're a great choice, not to so much enjoy in spring. You won't really see these do a lot in spring, but they're an investment you can make in next summer, and you will be very, very glad that you did. So again, these are just 5 suggestions, lots of different shrubs you can plant, and the same information goes for shrubs, perennials, and trees. So if you're headed out to the garden center this year, don't just stop at the mums and pumpkins. Make sure you're exploring everything that's on offer, scooping up those deals, and getting a head start on next season. So you might be wondering how late in fall you can plant. And the answer to that is, in a cold climate, you want to plant up until about 6 weeks before your ground freezes. Now, that is a very difficult date to predict, especially these days. It could happen in December, it could happen in January. So usually for cold climate gardeners, I would say wind up your planting by about mid-November. If you live in a warm climate or the ground doesn't freeze, you can easily plant into December and beyond. You just want to make sure that you mulch, and of course water your plants in well. That's really key, and continue to water it if the fall weather is very hot and unusually dry. One last thing. If you have plants that are still in their containers, it is best to try to get them in the ground, even if it goes outside these date ranges that I've just given you. The plants will be much happier if they spend the winter in the ground rather than in their containers, if at all possible. And you can always move them in spring. They're not going to root in that much that they would be difficult to transplant come spring. So no matter how late it gets, if you're scooping up those last minute bargains or life just gets in the way, because of course it does, try to get them in the ground rather than overwinter them in their containers. If you have any questions about fall planting or anything else, please leave them as a comment below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of our planting tips and suggestions. Thanks.